Everybody, welcome to another episode of Worldwide TV, and we're here in Auburn, Indiana with, of course, a gentleman that many of you are quite familiar with. Has been on the screen of Worldwide TV many times. Great friend, restorer extraordinaire, historian, car guy, Travis LaVine. Thanks for being back.
Gosh, do I need to send you the check now or later?
I know that sounded like I almost like you, which
wow,
I didn't want to quite go that
Probably
far.
should go apply for a new job after this. Jeez, my resume's never sounded so good. Well, John, thanks for having me down. I'm glad I could make the trip for this particularly special car, which I'm excited to take a look at with you.
Yeah, and we've got the 1931 V-16 dual cowl, and the only one that's known to exist, and the only one that we've actually been able to prove was ever built, and I believe a benchmark for 16-cylinder cars, and really a great opportunity for folks to learn about the car and maybe even buy it.
Absolutely. You know, I appreciate when I can come down and do these things. I say I'm not an expert on anything by any stretch of the imagination, but I love to learn. And being able to stand in front of a piece of art like this, which is really what these cars are, is always a special experience because there's so much that goes into a car beyond just the car itself. There's so much history, the documentation, all the lives that the car touched along the way, not only in its production cycle, but also thereafter. And when you get a car like this that has the documentation that it does, the provenance, the ownership chain, and the fact that it's a V16, a beautiful car. I mean, just one of the most aesthetically pleasing engines ever built. It's a very special experience for me to get the invitation to come down and look at this and talk about it because it's seeing a piece of art. It's a Mona Lisa, it's a Degas, it's so many great things, you know, getting to be here. That's what I love about this. So.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And one of the things that draws me to this car so much, you know, we do see fairly often, even at auction quite a bit, we'll see a V16 Roadster. And every time I see one, I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Oh, yes.
But they are out there.
Sure.
And if you want one, it's not too terribly difficult to get one. But when you look at this car, you're like, well, man, there's been limited owners. This car has not been available for quite some time. And now it is. It's not just a 16 though. And when we talk about cars within a specific mark, there's a difference, not just in body style, but in what it is from a correctness and authentic, original kind of feel.
Certainly.
And I know you've been able to look at the car and, you know, what parts of that jump out to you?
This is a restorer's dream, just to start off with. You know, I was an attorney before this too, so research is something that's just a passion of mine.
Absolutely.
And being able to see a car like this and understand how well vetted it is, and the incontrovertible aspects of numbers, you know, wood being original, stampings on the wood in the documentation that you receive from Harrah's, all of that put together in this, it really is an incredible timepiece. I mean, this is kind of one of those cars that I wish I had X-ray vision and could just see all of the unique aspects of it for the next V16 Cadillac that we do. Because the wonderful thing about a car like this, you see the unique aspects of the build procedure that Cadillac, Fleetwood in particular, used. And that's what's amazing about a car that's this authentic and unique, is you get to kind of extrapolate that information out into other Cadillacs and thinking in the logic of a way the car was built. And it's just awesome to see something this up close and understand how correct and original aspects of it are that you don't get on your average V16 or on most cars, period. So that's really what's striking about this car, beyond the fact that it's just a beautiful dual cowl, double cowl car, is there's just so much history here, and that's what's exciting about it to me.
Well, I think that all of us have been to great events, Concours d'Elegance events. We've seen some spectacular cars, and when we see a car that's restored, I don't think a lot of us collectors really recognize what it takes to correctly and authentically restore a car, and how important having a great car to start with is. And I think that you know, you and your parents and the whole crew at LaVine Restorations have really taken that to another level in the world of restorations, to not just preserve authenticity and correctness, but, you know, just it's a whole nother stratosphere of quality and workmanship that you just don't see very often, and you guys have got that. So to have a restorer like you here and look at something like this and do a little homework on it, it means so much more than I think people realize, and I want them to understand that. And I know I'm giving accolades to you guys, which are deserved, but I'm doing that because I think this car is really special.
It is. Well, thank you for that. That's very kind. And the car is special. And realistically, when you think about it, every car is special, right? They all have an incredible story to tell and a soul. And then you get to a car that's special amongst the special, and then you get to that rare group of cars that are the third degree of that. And I'm standing next to this, and I keep looking over and enjoying what I'm seeing here, because that is in that you know, third layer of special cars. I mean, this is really a rare opportunity of a car in its current configuration. That's what's really neat about this. I'm a restorer, sure. That's what we do, and we love that, but we also love preservation cars, and we love seeing cars that are out and being used and driven, because at the end of the day, when you get behind the wheel of a car like this, you are now part of a chain and a lineage of somebody that maybe took their first child home from the hospital in this car. Think about that. Or went on their first date or went to their first job. And getting behind the wheel of these cars, that's a magical experience when you actually sit down and think, this is a time capsule. This will far outlive us, and it's outlived the people that came before us and drove it. And so being here and looking at this, I think this would be a fantastic candidate for restoration, but it's also incredible as it presents right now. And it's beautiful because it's a V16 Cadillac. I mean, let's just full stop.
Well,
and you can do incredible things with it as it is now.
Absolutely. We've been able to take it out and drive it, and you know, the stance of this car, you know, just kind of step back, and you know, we have the top down, you know, it showcases the double cowl, which this is a non-catalog option car. So it's a
Sure.
special order, really a custom ordered double cowl.
Yes.
Special wish, if you will. But I love how this car looks with the top up. Its stance, its rakish feel. You know, you see the rear windscreen is raked back, and it almost has a bold hot rod feel to it.
Certainly.
From the factory. Like, this is what Fleetwood did, and it's a pretty awesome look.
Sure. What's amazing to me about looking at these cars that are approaching 100 years old at this point in time,
Right.
is the engineers and the designers that did these cars in period. We tend to look at cars or objects from 100, 200, 300 years ago and think we're smarter, we do things better than them. In reality, we don't. If you look at this in the proportions, there's a massive car here, but it is svelte. It's 4 passengers. It's the ultimate expression of open car touring, in that you can have 4 people enjoy, and you get 4 people that don't get their long hair like mine blown in the wind by this beautiful double cowl. But this is a hulking car by scale, but by appearance, it's absolutely svelte and beautiful. And that is incredible to think about, something that was penned probably realistically in 1929 or 1930 leading up to this.
Mm-hmm.
In somebody's mind, resting there and taking up space rent-free, and then ultimately being able to be put on paper and built out, and somebody coming in and saying, hey, I want this double cowl, and there was a designer at Fleet that was like, yes, this is my time to shine, and you get to see this here. And that's what goes back to the beauty of the history on these cars, is it's more than just the car. It's somebody that sat down and penned this design, it's craftsmen that built it, and seeing the ultimate expression of that come to life, it's really beautiful here. I mean, you have so much aerodynamic windswept, pardon me if I could talk, aspects of this. The curvature of your wind wings and the way that translates into your handles, and how that translates into the rake on your rear cowl. It's beautiful. It's a very elegant design. It's almost simple in its execution, but because it is simple and it's not garish or overly large, it makes it, like you said, almost a hot rod. It has a very sleek aspect to it. So it's a beautiful car. I mean, just standing here with it yet again, it's amazing. And I love the Firestone gum dipped on it. You know, originally the shield on the F was actually white. Fun fact for everybody out there.
Right.
I mean, the car is just, it's spectacular. It's just a spectacular car.
Now
31, 32 Cadillacs are just the pinnacle for me.
They are. And you've gotten, as have I, a chance to look at the build sheet of the car, and on there it lists a bunch of numbers.
Sure.
And being the restorer that you are, maybe you can share just a couple of those that are there and whether or not they're still here on this car.
So, I mean, you know, the Holy Trinity, engine, body, chassis, being original is great. When you start talking about crankcase, panels that are numbered, components that are numbered, that's what this car has. And that, again, going back into the historical aspect of this car, notwithstanding what the car is, but just the fact that those things are still remaining is unbelievable. I mean,
Axle,
that truly is,
steering column.
yes, I mean, you name it.
It's all there.
That was the beauty of a manufacturer like Cadillac, because they were larger and they were very organized at that point in time. They kept records on those kind of things. And I love looking at build sheets of manufacturers, because you can kind of see how, if it's a smaller manufacturer, you can see the things that they tracked. And then if it's a larger manufacturer, you can see that the things that they tracked were quite more extensive.
Sure.
And this car, just looking at the build sheet and seeing all the things down to the appointments of the Driftwood smoke paint scheme and the bronze wheels and all that, they documented so much, and it's incredible to see those things actually line up. Again, we've restored a lot of cars over 48 years, and I have in the last 8 years seen a lot of cars, and you rarely come across cars that have those features intact. And that's incredible. I mean, again, after almost 100 years, the fact that those things are still there, that's a testament not only to how special the car was that it was taken care of, but that's a testament to the caretakers that preceded whomever, hopefully the lucky owner of this next car is. And to me, that's incredible. I mean, it was obviously special from its inception, and it's special now, and that's why it's still the way it is. So.
Well, we keep using the term V16, which I think a lot of people know, but let's show everybody exactly what
Take it back, I'll take the
we're talking about here, and just discuss a little bit.
I'll hold it there if you'd like to.
If we come and just kind of look at this, and you made the comment about the significance of this motor, but maybe just recap some of the highlights of what this actually means.
So one of the beautiful things, do you have that there?
Yep.
One of the beautiful things about engines from this period, especially when you start getting into the V16 wars or the V16 developers or V12s, it doesn't matter. It wasn't just function, it was form as well. And that's something that we, as a culture now in our cars, you don't even see the engine. I mean, it's a panel in that. Mm-hmm. And the beauty about this is an incredibly powerful, torquey, smooth engine in and of itself. The function is unbelievable, but the form is one of the most elegant engines ever to be produced. I mean, to my mind, obviously, I'm a big Packard guy. Marmons are incredible. Again, in the 16 Spectrum, Peerless, mm-hmm. and the small run they did, but the Cadillac V16 is just stunning. It's mm-hmm. balanced from side to side, the way that lines were run, the distributor. I mean, everything about it is balanced side to side, and it's just a spectacularly stunning engine in its appearance. And you can't really, I feel bad for people that are watching this. It's kind of hard to get the scope of the size of this and the mm-hmm. narrow 45-degree wedge on the V16 and how narrow. I mean, you're used to seeing things that are more in the 60-degree range, at least in that. Mm-hmm. To see how narrow that is, which facilitates a really actually narrow bay through here.
Yep.
And gives you this room for these beautiful manifolds coming off of here. It's just they're a spectacular engine. I'm not going to pretend that I'm by any stretch of the imagination, an expert on V16 Cadillacs, but I will tell you this. We've done a few, and every single one is a breathtaking experience to restore and be a part of. But the engine is really the pièce de résistance. I mean, they are an unbelievably beautiful, well-designed, functional engine, and it's something that you can get in and drive today and feel confident about what your highway speeds are and how you can run it and everything else. I mean, they're just an incredible car. Absolutely incredible car.
They really are. And, I've been able to crawl all over this and look at the numbers.
Sure.
Have the build sheet there, and it just keeps going and going. And, you mentioned some of the other manufacturers of 16-cylinder cars, and because the Cadillac 16 is everything you just described, because this is, a singular example, some people think it's a bold statement, but I really believe that this car is a benchmark for all 16-cylinder cars, because not just its look and design and everything that it is fundamentally, but the correctness and the components and the history, the usability, the drivability. Like, it's really a top in its class kind of car.
Sure. One of the things that stands out to me in this too is it's not a completely original car. Let's not make a mistake about that. But the fact that it went through the restoration facility that it did.
One of the last three.
Yes.
To go through Harrah's shop.
The fact that it went through Harrah's shop and was documented the way that it was.
You get to look through the file box. I mean, there's hundreds of resto photos from a long time ago, which
is amazing because, I mean, I remember rolling up and putting, film into the little capsules and going to, CVS or whatever it was as a kid to pull out film, when we were young with our restoration. That's not easy to do.
That's right.
But the fact that it went through a very reputable shop when it did, and it was done to the way it was done at that point in time is, one, a testament to what their restoration facility was, which I absolutely respect, and two, even though it's not original, everything was documented. It's all there. Things weren't futzed with. It's been kept, true to its form, and that is incredible. So for me, I look at this car and I think, I would love to restore it, but it's amazing where it is. And the beauty of it is you can do either with it. It's not an original, so you have the ability to restore this, but you could take this car out and go, and I'm not just thinking about domestic shows. You take this out to the international circuit, and I love seeing American cars overseas. I don't think it's done enough. It's expensive, and I understand that, but I think Europeans don't really fully grasp how beautiful our early 30s designs were.
I think they appreciate them, though.
Sure, they do, but they need to see more of it. But I think if you took a car like this to Hampton Court or a Villa d'Este or something along those lines, you could take it there and do that. But I think they would be very amazed by this car. I mean, to me, I see elements of kind of a 540K-ish design. There are just certain aspects of this that I see. I'm like, it has, again, because of the svelte design nature of such a large car, it's just stunning. So yeah, I would love to see this car out. I hope it's shared. Whomever buys it, I really truly hope they take it out and stretch the legs and get this out into, shows and into the world, because it needs to be shared.
And it is going to be just that. Saturday, September 3rd in the evening. This car will cross the block right here in this very room right over there, and it will be a fantastic opportunity for somebody to own a really important classic, an important V16, and so many options, almost every option you could ever hope for.
Absolutely.
And so we think that discriminating collectors from around the world, not just the country, will love learning more about this. Of course, they can look at photos and all the documentation that we have. A lot of it's online, but a ton of it is here because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
And I am really looking forward to the next owner, as you said, hopefully sharing it with everybody.
Sure.
And, who knows? Maybe somebody buys it and decides to restore it, and maybe they go to your outstanding restoration facility,
Well,
because I know it'd be a great place to do it. But it's going to be fun, and make no mistake, this is a hobby, and even though we're talking about serious dollars and investment grade automobiles and art, it's still fun, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love it, and probably one of the reasons why a lot of people love it.
Sure. Now, it's a beautiful thing about cars is there are very few pieces that transcend time like art does, and there are very few pieces of art that you can actually use. So to whomever that lucky buyer is, and whomever might work on this car down the road, I hope that the owner absolutely loves it, and whoever gets to work on it understands that they're working on something that's extremely historically significant and absolutely stunningly beautiful. So, John, I really appreciate you having me down here for this. It's always a pleasure to get to take a look at something like this. I'm absolutely going to poke around at it a little bit more after we get done here, but yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time to
Absolutely. No, thank
talk
you
to me
for
about this car.
sharing your time with us and with everybody watching, and just with the hobby and car fans all over the place. So thank you all for watching. We look forward to you joining us for more Worldwide TV between now and the auction, and certainly we hope you all watch the auction live, worldwidetv.com, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate you all watching, and we'll see you soon.
Let's see, okay, first of all, the fact that your data tag is still here and original and painted over, which is awesome because that would have been painted over. Very typical thing that the manufacturers did at this point in time, especially on light colored cars, is they would paint the firewall a dark color because these cars all slung oil. Like, that was very typical to do. You could probably just lay it back. I think that's the way. Yeah. That's the way that these cars were set up. One, it looked way cooler, and two, it was actually a function thing too, because it was a lot easier to not show oil and crap on the cars. Like, that was just an inherent design issue that was typical for the era. But I mean, it's pretty nuts that this thing has what it does. This is actually a super cool, really early feature to know how much oil was in these, because like heads and everything else, and then you crank like the body of the engine and then your oil pan. So right down here, there's a little plunger that's sealed. You see that little red dot? Mm-hmm. That it lines up and lets you know how much oil is in your pan. There's a little plunger, basically just a little buoy that goes down into that, and it was a very simple but yet pretty freaking cool and elegant way of doing that.
Being resourceful right there. I'm just putting something simple.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Well, it's all digital now. But like the fact that they go into the body number on this, body style, that's wild. Like, you know, original tags, these are one of the first things to go in general because they were thin pieces of metal, so they would rust out. They're also one of the greatest aspects of these cars because generally speaking, everything that was behind was sealed to the most part. So whenever you're doing a car that is original, that is the best place and generally the first place that you check to see what the paint color is behind it, because it wasn't open or exposed to sunlight. Like, that's the biggest thing. Water will do damage and rust will do damage, but generally speaking, the paint will survive those things, but sunlight will bleach everything. So yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Like, these Klaxon horns are awesome. Klaxon supplied a ton of horns. Delco and Klaxon were two of the biggest. Klaxon in particular was about the biggest supplier of horns at that point in time. Spartan supplied a lot of horns as well. How sexy is this? It slides along with the door, and that's your door check strap, so you can't let it swing open too far. Like, there is nothing to this door except for a handle, a map pocket, document pocket, whatever. But that way of doing the check strap is really frickin' sexy. It also will trip you 8 times out of 10 getting into one of these things, because that's happened to me before, but how frickin' cool is that? So one of the hardest parts about the restoration process is the teardown, because if you mess up the teardown process, you will absolutely destroy the restoration. We talk about it a lot about our process, and yeah, it's expensive to restore a car, especially the way that we do it. But we will literally do metallurgical testing on hardware that comes off of a car. Like one of the easiest way to tell if something is CAD or zinc plated is to drop it in hydrochloric acid. That'll let you know right away that it's coated. So that's the level of detail that we've gotten into now on our restorations, is trying to replicate the original hardware and coatings, not just paints, but actually putting the original electro applied coating onto it. So we do all of our CAD plating in-house, zinc plating, dichromate, black chromate, black oxide, parkerizing, which is whatever, and heat treating and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not documenting every single aspect of what comes apart on that car, you can ruin the history, those little features of it. The car will go back together and 99% of people won't care, but the 1% that really is what this is about. I mean, art, let's be honest here. You appreciate it for the aesthetics, but you don't appreciate the pigments that were used and the techniques, and if it's pointillism or whatever, realism, that really doesn't resonate with most people. It's the same thing with a car like this. So for us, we are very, very cautious in our teardown process. Like, that's when I say, like, I literally will have an Excel spreadsheet for every single item that comes off the car. And I will go through from a research perspective and have a justification for as many aspects of a car as I can. Like the CL, I think I have a reason for every choice we've made on that car. Paints, coatings, hardware. We marked all of the hardware. We made dies and machined and then hardened every piece of hardware on that car that needed to be heavy-headed and have the Dodge Brothers insignia or a little zero, which is what they used on their real heavy stuff, to make sure that it was accurate to what it was when it came from the factory. So the teardown process is the work is extremely difficult. I mean, it is some of the most taxing work I've ever done, period. But it's extremely rewarding because the basic principles of a car are the same. There's still propulsion, there's wheels, there's stopping, there's brakes, there's drag coefficients and all that kind of stuff. And that's what's cool about this, is you can really see the evolution of the car, but there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to these. Like, just like the frickin', running board lights and door stops and, hardware that was on here and crap like that. It's unbelievable that that's something that really is relatively unchanged over 100 years.
Let's fire it up.
I'm game.
Yeah!